Hello, welcome to this episode of Halcyon Blink. On this episode I'm going to be taking a look at the film The Crow. The Crow is a film from 1994 that seems to have been forgotten in the annals of 1990s history, but with the raft of late 80s, early 90s ideas being resurrected in lieu of any real innovation or imagination from the lazy in charge of the film industry, it's only a matter of time before the reboot graces our screens or is touted and then releases a DVD extra on some crappy film franchise going forward. However, before we see another film butchered due to a lack of what I would consider to be a need to innovate, in the same vein as something like Point Break, let's take a look at a film that is pretty much a goth's wet dream wished into reality. How best to sum up this film? Well, imagine if Heath Ledger had played the Joker as a hero. You get pretty close to the vibe and the feel of a character called Eric Draven, played by, in this instance, Brandon Lee, who's the victim of a terrible tragedy and whose sorrow and grief has resulted in his resurrection by the mysterious Crow to pursue justice for his murder and the murder of his fiancée, Shelley Webster.
Why don't you tell me a story? A man and a woman in law a year ago.
He's now imbued with the ability to cheat death and heal from any wound, and the film follows Eric as he hunts and kills the various members of the gang responsible, and in the process reconnects with those who he's left behind as he seeks those who are not only directly responsible for his murder, but also the figure of the head of crime in the city itself. The film's gritty, has a very strong comic book inspired setting and presentation, and it's hard to not find the concept just cool as In fact, the prominent pro wrestler Sting stole the gimmick in its entirety for his second run as the Silent Avenger character, which blew his character in terms of priority sky high. That was how great the concept was.
Suddenly, I heard a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. What are you talking about? You heard me rapping, right?
A few moments later.
What's up there? The crowd standing, looking up. Uh-oh. That's what they're looking at.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
And touching on Brandon Lee for a moment, he gives a wonderful performance as a passionate, loving person who's drawn inexorably to the task of exacting his retribution, despite his demeanour. However, in spite of the juxtaposition of his character's motivations and actions, when you see the world he's in and how dark, hopeless it is, and how evil and remorseless his foes are, you feel an instant investment in his plight. This means too that the fact that he's unkillable doesn't detract from the stakes at all, and the fact that, well, he can't die, so why are we watching in terms of suspense? The action is what drives it forward. You find yourself rooting for him, considering how evil his foes are.
Kill him! That enter.
And the film itself, for its time and considering its production budget, is shot beautifully. The soundtrack is awesome, with The Cure's Burn such a fitting song given the premise and tone of the film. And the package itself is perfect for what it set out to achieve in terms of, like I said, being, you know, the gothic, you know, vision of a dystopian, not future, but present time that's just full of despair and full of grit and darkness, from which a certain, you know, hope arises that gives way to the rest of the city following suit. And yes, some of the effects, specifically the gunshot wounds and the hand scene in the middle of the film, are dated, but they were impressive for their time. The practical effects of the explosions and the gunplay still feel impactful and epic as to this day.
Is that gasoline I smell?
No, man. No! No! No!
The story itself it's a bit cliche, but you can't say it isn't touching. And it's fast-paced when it needs to be, with its only real weaknesses being its ending that staggers somewhat, trying to even the stakes with the main protagonist and the main antagonist, this long-haired villain with a gravelly voice. I don't remember his name, he wasn't a particularly strong villain, in an attempt to build drama. And while this ultimately fails the trade-off, is one of the most original and gratifying villain deaths of all time in film. And yeah, you can't really talk about this film without mentioning the unfortunate and untimely death of Brandon Lee while making the film, but instead of dwelling too much on that, I'll simply state that he shares another parallel with Heath Ledger, in that the sadness of his death is rooted in the clear and massive potential he held for future films with more production and gravitas to them as a main lead, a male lead in those films. Imagine, Speed, or imagine The Matrix, or something like that with Brandon Lee in the role. He would have done just as good a job as someone like a Keanu Reeves, and we may have, who would have been competing with those roles, who knows. Alas, this is the film he'll be remembered for. However, it is a beautiful film for its time, and one that I hope does not find its way back onto the screens, revamped without any sense of the soul or the purpose of its predecessor. I just really hope they leave this one alone as the cult classic that it is. The film, I'd say it's between a 7 or an 8. If you're into action films and you're into comic book films, it's an 8. If you're not and you're looking for just a generically good film for the 90s, then it's a 7. If you're not into any of those things and you like the more modern, stylistic superhero films or the more child-friendly superhero films, then it won't rank very highly for you, because this film is graphic, has a lot of swearing, drug use, lots of sexual references, rape scenes, stuff like that, so it's really not for kids. It is a much more adult film than anything that's preceded it. Again, this whole idea that Deadpool piloted the R-rated superhero thing is a crock of shit, with films like this and Blade coming way before it, and being decent enough films in their own right. But as far as a film that blends, it has a heart, it has great tone, it sets out to achieve what it wanted to achieve, it's a great action film, and it has moments that are genuinely touching, then this has a seamless blend of all of those things, and you need to check out The Crow if you've never checked it out before. So thank you very much for watching this episode of Halcyon Blink. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you haven't taken time to do so, please check out some of the links in the description for other channels, other content creators that I believe deserve your support, if not mine. If you could also just like and share their channels as well, I'd really appreciate that. If not, please like and share and subscribe to this channel. If you haven't already, go do it now. Don't waste time watching the rest of this video. Just click the bottom things and make my world a better place by doing so. Thank you very much for watching again. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.